Smells like the perfume section in Dillard's. You know, sometimes you just gotta stop and smell the roses. Today, we're gonna give you a little rhyme here. Roses are red, violets are blue. We're gonna make a metal flower just for you. Welcome back to my shop here in Houston, Texas. Guys, Austin Hargett here, aka Dr. Weld. We're going to be building some metal flowers. If you haven't figured that out, Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and what not a better gift. You'll never have to buy her another flower ever again because this one lasts forever. So today we're going to be using some 16 gauge copper right here for our rose petals. We're also going to be using some 16 gauge carbon steel for our leaves. We've got some stainless steel TIG wire, some 532, some 332, some hog wire for that main stem and for some of the little stems to go down. And then we've got some silicon bronze to do a little tacking, a little thorn work, a little bit accessorizing with some silicon bronze. We love that silicon bronze. The first step of our process is to print off a PDF file. You can do a bunch of different sizes of petals. This is what I went with. So let's cut these things out. Bippity boppity boo. All right, now that we got these suckers cut out, we can take them out, slap them on our copper here, trace them out, cut them out. So I'm going to show you guys how to make two different styles of roses. One's going to be a full bloom flower, and the other one's going to be kind of a smaller one that's kind of still budding, still opening up. We want to try to be as creative as possible. This is going to be a real fancy flower, real pretty. We're going to trace these on here real quick. You don't have to be perfect. You just want the basic shape of the petals, mostly just this even symmetry of where they are. Nature's not perfect, and that's what I love about doing these. And you also want to make sure that you're able to find the center on these. So we've got 4 different sizes. So that's the first trace. You can pretty much just eyeball that center, and then you're going to want to draw in some lines to that. You want to leave about a 1/4 of an inch or so that you're going to leave connected, because you want all those flowers to come up so we can end up folding all these in. So again, we got 4 different sizes. The first flower is going to be 2 of these big ones, then followed by each one of these. So it's actually going to be a 5-piece. Whereas the other one, we're going to probably take this middle guy here and then do 3 of it, all the same size, and then cut them all out, and then I'll show you how to put that rose together. Alrighty, now that we're done with all these, now again, you guys don't have to stay in the lines. Your grade school teacher might have a conniption when she sees that you're all squiggly and not staying inside the lines, but it's okay. Like I said, you're going to cut this out, and we're going to do a little sanding and stuff. It's all going to change from what it is now. So I usually make sure that we're going a little bit bigger than our template, making sure you have a decent hole in the center. And like I said, you can use some shears for this. This is not a bad option, but this is too thick. This is going to wear out my hands, and these shears aren't big enough. So do 20 gauge, 22 gauge if you're going to worry about that. I've even built these out of steel, but I used like old rod boxes. If you use old rod boxes, they're really thin, and you can cut those with shears, and you don't need to do any type of cutting. But since we're cutting copper, we're going to need to switch over to the plasma cutter. You can't torch cut copper. It's a non-ferrous metal, but plasma cutters can. All right, so we got our plasma cutter here. We got it set to cut, 35 amps, compressed air is on. Got our leads and ground hooked up. We did a practice cutty cut. You should always do a little practice cutty cut before cutty cutting so that you know that your cutty cutter is set right for cutting. So let's cut all these bad boys out. All right, so we're going to keep cutting into this 16 gauge copper sheet with our plasma cutter here. 35 amps is plenty enough. The travel speed, I think I could probably pick up a little bit as well. We're not trying to stay perfect again with, nature not being 100% perfect. We can just kind of skate through this really easy. You're not really, paying too much attention, just kind of keeping things on the line. You don't have to favor one side or the other. Make sure you get a nice hole in the center of the rose too. All right, guys, so we got our little flower petals cut out. Yeah, they look rough, right? But don't worry, nature's not perfect. They look like bikini bottom clouds, but they'll all work. You want to make sure that you're cutting in really close to that hole, and then also make sure your stem fits through that hole. So we'll clean these up here in a bit, and we're going to add some texture to them. But first, we're not done with the plasma cutter. We got to cut some leafage, some foliage. All right, I brought you back out here to kind of check out some of these. These are called knockout roses. They're not as, like, I don't know, petally as some of the other roses. I'm not a botanist, but we're just taking a look at these leaves and how they're put together. Looks real easy. Easy cut. Let's go do it inside. So we're going to keep it simple. I just drew the stem for kind of, I don't know, sizey stuff. But really, we're just going to cut only the leaves out. We're going to build the stems out of some stainless wire. So we're going to cut out a couple of these. And I got this on here because this is going to be the budded rose. So one side of the stem is going to be here. Main stem. This is going to be off to the left. It's going to be off to the right. Always kind of plan out your stuff. It's better that way. All right, so now we're going to start. I'm going to kind of show you my creative process here. This will be the base. I don't know what this thing is, but it's a thing. It's really solid. I like it. So, and then we're going to run this bigger stem. I'm thinking now that I've got this kind of laid out, I need this a lot shorter. I want these shorter, this shorter. I want it to be only about, a foot or so tall. And right now we're really tall. This is going to be the 5-piece rose, the 3-piece rose. This looks really 2D, and we're going to turn it 3D. We're also going to add some thorns and some vines and some extra bits. So just to kind of let you see what I'm seeing. Yeah, so you want to make sure you got yourself a nice flappy wheel fella. And go across these pieces of copper and all the carbon steel and kind of give everything a nice shine to it, sheen to it. I mean, it's all going to get adjusted as we continue with this project when we add textures and stuff. But this is kind of the base foundation. It's just this 60 grit flap wheel pretty much on everything. Be careful not to grab your little fingers. Put a clamp on there so you don't go and, lose the tip of your finger. At least the FBI won't be able to find you. All right, so we got a little prepperage done here. We've got our copper cleaned up with the flap wheel, the flapper adapter. I think we were running a 60 grit flap wheel there. We got the steel kind of cleaned up. Now, again, this rose is all about details. So now we've got to add a little bit of details to these leaves, the little veins and stuff. So we're going to add a little engraver here. And then to put kind of the touch onto these petals, we're going to use a chip and hammer and just go to work on it. So let's put some texture in these old things. And we're going to bend these leaves as well, kind of give them the shape of a leaf. Real simple. We're going to just grab our little engraver and add some lineage to these leaves. Try to run that little grinder one direction because it works best pretty much one way. I like using the old palm sander because it rotates one way, both ways, all the ways, and it puts a nice texture on these on this copper here, nice and solid and clean. Next thing you want to do is prep these flowers here, and you're going to take a chipping hammer and just go to work on this sucker, just hammering in the petals. This gives that nice flower touch to it, gives that petal more of a lifelike feel. It's not a fun process and it's very tedious, but you get through it. Next thing we're going to do is add a little bendage to our foliage, if you will, so that we give that lifelike look, the little bends and folds and whatnots that nature provides in a lovely occurrence. Well, that was a lot of work. So again, these are just optional options for you to do whenever you're building your own rose. You don't have to use this thick of material. You don't have to do all this texturing. You can do the bending a little bit later. These are just some of the steps that I got. But now we've got it all bent. We've got everything textured as far as leaves and petals. Now we've got to work on this stem, right? That's right. This thing is going to get nice and fancy. So we're going to start by getting it all beat up with a hammer. That way we get a nice texture on it, and then we're going to put some thorns on this sucker. To kind of follow the theme of like realism, I'm going to take these 3 30-second stainless steel rods on this carbon steel, and I'm going to run it on the back side of this leaf like the main stem that goes to the leaf. And then that'll go to another stem that will go to the actual main stem. So we're going to have a bunch of little stemmy stems. All right, you're going to want to be very careful not to overheat these little parts. We're basically going to use the filler metal and just stick it to this leaf. Once it's stuck to this leaf, we can grab a pair of pliers and kind of bend it to the same contour as the leaf, and then, go from there. So I'm using a pair of pliers and this vise here to kind of shape this petal to fit that contour of the stem to the leaf. And then we got a nice little look to it. Add those little bendy shapes and bendy forms that nature provides. All right, so we've got the texture on a lot of these things. We went ahead and put the old veiny bits on the back side of these leaves with the fronts. We're going to stick these outside and see if we can't get a little bit of a rust patina on them. These are going to be the stems that are coming up towards those. Those will be all coming off the main stem, right? So this is the main stem. We're going to add a little heat to it and smush it all with a hammer. And then we're going to put thorns all over this sucker. So we're going to texture it, add thorns with silicone bronze, and then we're going to clean it all up. Real easy peasy. We just get ourselves a nice rosebud torch, get this 532 stainless wire nice and hot, and just give it a whooping, just all over the place. Nothing fancy, then clean up the scale so we got a nice stem. All right, so here's our main stem. Nice and beat up, different directions, got some dents, dings, and bings in it. That's what you want. It's kind of a natural look. Now we're going to take some silicone bronze and make some thorns up this thing. When adding thorns to the stem with silicone bronze, you don't have to be precise. A high frequency welder is nice because this silicone bronze is real wet when it gets down to the nitty gritty and will fall out. So you'll see me turning that arc on and off quite a bit because I'm not working on a foot pedal. But the idea is just to put enough metal on it to where we can grind the shape of the thorn later. We're not worried about shaping anything at this point, just putting the metal where it needs to be. So here's our main stem now. It's got some lumps on it. It's pretty much all you need to do with the silicone bronze is put a bunch of lumps on the thing. Wherever you want a lump, put a lump. And then we're going to grind and sand the shape of that thorn onto this stem. All right, now we get off this little wheel here and put a flapper adapter on here, grind the shape of it, and then we're going to take this through a couple levels of sanding as we shape these thorns, and then we're going to run it over across the polishing wheel too to really add some depth to it, including our other pieces of stem too. Now we're going to attack with the TIG process. We're going to attach all these leaves to the stems, attach the stems to the leaves. We'll probably go ahead and build this rose with this stem, and we'll show you how to do this one next. Build this little bit so we can attach it to that bit. So we'll build that, attach it all, then put the coup de grace on the top. So very similar to welding the stem on the back side of the leaf, we're just using the filler metal that's attached to it. You got to be careful. If we melt through this filler rod, the whole thing will fall apart. So you want to be really quick on the adjustments here as you attack these small bits of wire to the other one. I like using TIG, high frequency start the best. I'm not using a foot pedal, which probably be nicer, but this works just fine and kind of eliminates a little variable of having to work your foot across it. So got a nice little stem here. Let's put the flower top on. We're going to put the copper rose on top, the small one. That's going to be a 3-piece with the same size. All right, so now we're going to take one of our petals. These are like the mid-sized petals. They're all the same size. We got 3 of them. We're going to stack the first one right on there. We're going to give it a tack with some silicone bronze wire, 16th inch to weld it with. Then we're going to stagger the next one here and then tack it again and stagger the last one here, all pushing it down on that stem, and then we're going to fold it all up. My only advice for welding anything to copper is copper needs a lot of heat to get started, so keep that in mind. It's going to melt, at different temperatures than the stem, so be careful. All right, we got everything tacked down now. Now we're going to take some pliers, 2 sets. We want just a regular set of pliers with this set of pliers here. We'll bend them in. We'll fold them inside. Now, if you want this copper color back, you're going to have to go and quench it real quick. It'll actually go right back to copper color, but we're going to do some heat treatment and see what we can do with this. And there's our first flower. This is the 3-piece flower that is all the same size petals. This is going to be a 5-piece flower with all different size petals, so it opens up a little bit more. But yeah, that's going to be our first one. It's still black. We're going to try to fix that here later on. So yeah, now we got to take these, attach all this stuff, build the flower and connect it all, clean it up, put it on the base, and we're done. All right, we're getting everything kind of built. Got the bottom stem on with the fancy leaves, that's on there. The rose, the small rose is on there. We gotta drop it down to make room for the big one. We have to bend some stuff, so you're learning as you go. And I gotta put a little extra tacky rooney right on this guy so she don't fall off. Right there. So let's put this big rose on top. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna stagger everything, and then we're gonna bend it all up and then attach it to our base. All right, so there you have it. We got both roses done. You can see when you do them different sizes, this top one's a lot wider, opens up more. When you do them all the same, they kind of stack and get tall. So I like everything. It's nice and clean. Now we're gonna do something about the color on this rose with some heat. While it's nice and hot, give it a nice squirt. Some of that orange will come back into it. Get all that mill scale off. That wraps up today's episode, guys. Go follow me, Austin Hargett, inside the Weld app. I'll follow you back. We did a cool project today, making a forever flower for your significant other, whoever you'd like to give it to. This thing's gonna last forever. So does all the great stuff inside the Weld app. We've got a bunch of tutorials, videos, how-tos, cool projects, all that kind of stuff. Not only that, but you can network with all your favorite welders inside that Weld app. So go check us out. See you next time.